Stupidity.
Stupidity.
All the horrors and stupidities of war.
Stupor.
Stupor.
We found him lying at the bottom of the stairs in a drunken stupor.
Sturdy.
Sturdy.
That chair doesn't look very sturdy.
Sturdy, comfortable shoes.
A sturdy young man. Sturdy legs.
They kept up a sturdy opposition to the plan.
Sturgeon.
Sturgeon.
Stutter.
Stutter.
I'm David, he stuttered. A refrigerator which stuttered and hummed.
A nervous stutter.
Sty.
Sty.
Stygian.
Stygian.
The Stygian gloom.
Style.
Style.
An attempt to use Japanese management style in a European business.
Different styles of handwriting. Cuban style, black beans and rice.
A colonial style house.
The dinner will be served buffet style.
Children have different styles of learning. Some learn by seeing, some by hearing, some by doing.
I don't think the parachuting weekend is for me. The art class is more my style.
I like your style, Simpson.
I can't ask a man out. It's not my style.
The paintings are in an expressionistic style.
Hemingway's direct style.
A play in the style of classical Greek tragedy. Car styles have changed radically in the past 20 years.
The rooms are furnished in a modern style.
Young women interested in style rather than comfort.
Long skirts are back in style.
You may not like her, but she certainly has style.
The team played with style.
It's not good style to use abbreviations in an essay.
Nadal won the match in fine style, not losing a single game.
These shoes have been styled for maximum comfort. She has her hair styled by Giorgio.
They style themselves the terrible twins.
Style sheet.
Style sheet. Styling.
Styling.
I like the new Audi in terms of styling. Stylish.
Stylish.
A stylish woman in her 40s.
Jack is quite stylish.
A stylish restaurant in the West End.
Stylist.
Stylist.
Renee was the top stylist at the salon.
Billie Holiday, one of jazz's most distinctive stylists. Stylistic.
Stylistic.
The sculptor's stylistic development.
Stylistic features of the story.
Stylistics.
Stylistics.
Stylized.
Stylized.
A stylized picture of the sun.
Stylus.
Stylus.
Stymie.
Stymie.
Investigators have been stymied by uncooperative witnesses.
Styrofoam.
Styrofoam. A styrofoam cup.
Suave.
Suave.
Sub.
Sub. Sub.
Roy's subbing for Chris in tonight's game.
I subbed Vanilla a tenner to get a decent bunch of flowers.
Sub.
Sub-zero temperatures.
Subsoil.
A sub-lieutenant. A subsection. A subcommittee.
Substandard housing.
Subnormal intelligence.
Subtropical heat.
Subaltern.
Subaltern.
Subaqua.
Subaqua.
Subaquadiving.
Subatomic.
Subatomic.
Subatomic particles.
Subcommittee.
Subcommittee.
Subcompact. Subcompact.
Subconscious.
Subconscious.
A subconscious fear of failure.
Subconsciously, he blames himself for the accident.
Anger buried deep in the subconscious.
Subcontinent.
Subcontinent. Subcontract.
Subcontract.
will be subcontracting most of the electrical work.
Some of the work will be subcontracted to another company.
Subcontractor.
Subcontractor.
Subculture.
Subculture.
The drug subculture of the inner city.
Subcutaneous.
Subcutaneous.
Subcutaneous fat.
Subdirectory.
Subdirectory. Subdivide.
Subdivide.
Over time, developers subdivided the land.
The house was subdivided into apartments.
Subdivision.
Subdivision.
Subdue.
Subdue.
Police managed to subdue the angry crowd.
Napoleon subdued much of Europe.
An excitement she could not subdue.
Subdued.
Richard seems very subdued tonight.
A subdued manner. Oh, she said in a subdued voice.
The housing market is fairly subdued.
Subedit.
Subedit.
Subeditor.
Subeditor.
Subgroup.
Subgroup.
Subheading.
Subheading.
Subhuman.
Subhuman.
The enemy was regarded as subhuman. The refugees were living in subhuman existence.
Subject.
Subject.
Paul has strong opinions on most subjects.
The subjects covered in this chapter are exercise and nutrition.
Truffaut's childhood memories were the subject of his first film.
While you're on the subject of money, do you have the $10 you owe me?
My favourite subject is math.
Monet loved to use gardens as his subjects.
The subjects of this experiment were all men aged 18 to 35. The subjects of this experiment were all men aged 18 to 35.
A British subject.
All flights are subject to delay. Prices are subject to change.
The funding is subject to approval by the Board of Education.
Violators are subject to a $100 fine.
Subject peoples.
Police subjected him to hours of questioning.
Barker subjected his victim to awful abuse.
Subjection.
Subjection.
The government used brute force to keep people in subjection. A period of subjection to Assyrian rulers.
The subjection of women. Subjective.
Subjective.
As a critic, he is far too subjective.
A highly subjective point of view.
The ratings were based on the subjective judgment of one person.
Our subjective perception of colours.
His work was judged objectively as well as subjectively.
Subject matter.
Subject matter.
The movie has been rated R due to adult subject matter.
Subjudice.
Subjudice.
Subjugate.
Subjugate.
The native population was subjugated and exploited.
Her own needs had been subjugated to the needs of her family.
Subjunctive.
Subjunctive.
Sublet.
Sublet.
I sublet my apartment to my sister, packed my van, and headed west.
Subjunctive. Sublet.
Sublieutenant.
Sublieutenant.
Sublimate.
Sublimate.
Sublime.
Sublime.
The view was sublime.
Her songs are a sublime fusion of pop and Brazilian music.
An air of sublime contentment.
The works on display ranged from the mainstream to the sublime.
Subliminal.
Subliminal.
A subliminal message.
Subliminal advertising.
Submachine gun.
Submachine gun.
Submarine.
Submarine.
A nuclear submarine.
Submarine plant life.
Submarine sandwich.
Submarine sandwich.
Submariner.
Submariner.
Submerge.
Submerge.
The tunnel entrance was submerged by rising seawater.
The submarine submerged.
Feelings she thought she'd submerged were surfacing again.
Alice submerged herself in work to try and forget about Tom.
Submerged rocks.
Submersible.
Submersible.
Submersion.
Submersion.
Submission.
Submission.
Napoleon threatened to starve the country into submission.
His head was bowed in submission.
The deadline for the submission of proposals is May the 1st.
Plans were drawn up for submission to the Housing Council.
Submissions will not be accepted after May the 1st.
It is important in my submission that a wider view of the matter be taken.
Submissive.
Submissive.
In those days, women were expected to be quiet and submissive.
Submit.
Submit.
All applications must be submitted by Monday.
Derek has agreed to submit to questioning.
I submit that the jury has been influenced by the publicity in this case.
Subnormal.
Subnormal.
Subnormal temperatures.
Subordinate.
Subordinate.
A subordinate officer.
Women were subordinate to men.
These aims were subordinate to the main aims of the mission.
Why subordinate your wishes to those of your family?
Subordinate clause.
Subordinate clause.
Suborn.
Suborn.
An attempt to suborn a witness.
Subplot.
Subplot.
The novel's romantic subplot.
Subpoena. Subpoena.
James was subpoenaed as a witness.
Sub-post office.
Sub-post office.
Subprime.
Subprime. Subprime mortgages are granted to individuals who would not qualify for a conventional mortgage.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
You can subscribe to the magazine for as little as $32 a year.
She subscribes to an environmental action group.
Each employee may subscribe for up to £2,000 worth of shares.
I have never subscribed to the view that school days are the happiest days of your life.
Subscriber.
Subscriber.
Cable television subscribers.
Subscription.
Subscription.
Are you interested in taking out a subscription to Newsweek? You may cancel your subscription at any time.
I've decided not to renew my subscription.
A subscription to Amnesty International.
The church's 120-foot Gothic spire was paid for by public subscription in 1939.
Subsection.
Subsection.
Subsequent.
Subsequent.
These skills were passed on to subsequent generations.
Subsequent pages of the book. Events that happened subsequent to the accident.
Subsequently.
Subsequently.
The book was subsequently translated into 15 languages.
Subsequently, the company filed for bankruptcy.
Subservient.
Subservient.
Don remained entirely subservient to his father.
His wife refused to accept a traditional subservient role.
The rights of the individual are made subservient to the interests of the state.
Subset.
Subset.
A small subset of the city's immigrant population.
Subside.
Subside.
Simon waited until the laughter subsided.
The pains in his head had subsided, but he still felt dizzy and sick.
After the heavy rains, part of the road subsided.
The wind gradually subsided and all was quiet.
When the floods subsided, the streets were littered with bodies.
Subsidence.
Subsidence.
Is your house insured against subsidence?
Subsidiarity.
Subsidiarity.
Subsidiary. Subsidiary.
A subsidiary of a U.S. company.
One of our Japanese subsidiaries.
A subsidiary hypothesis.
All other issues are subsidiary to this one.
Subsidize.
Subsidize.
Farming is heavily subsidized by the government.
Heavily subsidized agricultural exports.
Subsidy.
Subsidy.
International disagreement over trade subsidies.
Subsist.
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 We had to subsist on bread and water.
Old people often have to subsist on very low incomes.
Subsistence.
Subsistence.
Many of the families are forced to live at the subsistence level.
The land provided subsistence and little more.
Subsoil.
Subsoil.
Subsonic.
Subsonic.
Subspecies.
Subspecies.
Substance.
Substance.
The leaves were covered with a strange sticky substance.
Harmful substances in the atmosphere.
Plutonium-238 is one of the most toxic substances known to man.
Police found an illegal substance in his car. There is no substance to the rumours.
O'Connell's remarks are completely without substance.
The substance of his argument was that people on welfare should work.
What she said, in substance, was that the mayor should resign. It was an entertaining speech, but it lacked substance.
We should be discussing matters of substance.
Substance abuse.
Substance abuse.
Substandard.
Substandard.
Substandard housing.
Substantial.
Substantial.
We have the support of a substantial number of parents.
A substantial salary.
A substantial breakfast.
The document requires substantial changes.
A substantial piece of furniture.
Substantially.
Substantially.
Substantially higher prices.
The deer population has increased substantially in recent years.
There are one or two minor differences, but they're substantially the same text.
Substantiate.
Substantiate.
Katzen offered little evidence to substantiate his claims.
Substantive.
Substantive.
The State Department reported that substantive discussions had taken place with Beijing.
Substation.
Substation.
Substitute.
Substitute.
Germany brought on a substitute at half-time.
Substitute goalkeeper.
The coach has to find a substitute for Tim. A sugar substitute.
A father substitute.
Vitamin pills are no substitute for a healthy diet.
The recipe says you can substitute yogurt for the sour cream. Bill substituted for Larry, who was off sick.
Michael Owen had to be substituted after 20 minutes on the field.
Substitute teacher.
Substitute teacher.
Substitution.
Substitution.
Coach Ross made 2 substitutions in the second half.
The substitution of English for French as the world's common language.
Substratum.
Substratum.
A substratum of rock.
A social substratum.
Substructure.
Substructure.
Subsume.
Subsume.
A wide range of offences are usually subsumed under the category of robbery.
Subtenant.
Subtenant.
Subterfuge.
Subterfuge.
Sereni was lured to Moscow by subterfuge.
Subterranean.
Subterranean.
Subterranean passage.
Subtext.
Subtext.
What's the subtext here? What's the writer really saying?
Subtitle.
Subtitle.
A French film with English subtitles.
The opera's subtitle is The School for Lovers. The book is subtitled A Psychology of Masculinity.
A subtitled version of the film.
Subtle.
Subtle.
The pictures are similar, but there are subtle differences between them.
The warning signs of the disease are so subtle that they are often ignored.
A subtle form of racism.
The flavour of the dried berries is more subtle.
The dish had a subtle hint of ginger. I think we need a more subtle approach.
A subtle plan.
She wasn't very subtle about it. She just said she didn't love him anymore.
A subtle mind.
A subtly different colour.
Subtlety.
Subtlety.
The play lacks subtlety.
She argued her case with considerable subtlety.
Some of the subtleties of the language are lost in translation.
Subtotal.
Subtotal.
Subtract.
Subtract.
If you subtract 30 from 45, you get 15.
Subtraction.
Subtraction.
Subtropical.
Subtropical.
Subtropical vegetation.
Suburb.
Suburb.
A London suburb.
A suburb of Los Angeles.
A kid from the suburbs.
Don't you get bored living out here in the suburbs?
Suburban.
Suburban.
A quiet suburban street.
Narrow-minded suburban attitudes.
Suburbanite.
Suburbanite.
Patsy's father is a typical suburbanite.
Suburbia.
Suburbia.
Middle-class suburbia.
Subvention.
Subvention.
Subversion.
Subversion.
Murray was jailed for subversion.
Subversive.
Subversive.
He was engaged in subversive activities.
A known subversive.
Subvert.
Subvert.
An attempt to subvert the democratic process.
Subway.
Subway.
The New York City subway. Crowded subway station. Boston has the oldest subway system in the U.S.
Sub-zero.
Sub-zero.
Succeed.
Succeed.
She wanted to be the first woman to climb Mount Everest, and she almost succeeded. Scientists claim they have succeeded in finding a cure for cancer.
Very few people succeed in losing weight and keeping it off.
Unfortunately, his plan did not succeed.
I'm not sure he has the determination to succeed as an actor.
A woman who succeeded in politics.
Reeves will succeed Siegel as Speaker of the House.
Who will succeed him to the throne? This car is intended to succeed the popular Fiesta. It seems I've only succeeded in upsetting you.
Succeeding.
Succeeding.
Over the succeeding weeks, things went from bad to worse.
Succeeding generations.
Success.
Success.
The experiment was a big success. I tried to contact him, but without success.
Did you have any success in persuading Alan to come?
The film was a great success.
Her book has enjoyed a lot of success. The play was a box office success.
The show was an overnight success.
Success isn't everything, you know.
He has already had a lot of success in his career.
She wasn't much of a success as a lawyer.
She's determined to make a success of her career.
The success of his latest business venture.
The firm wasn't a great success.
The company has been a major success story.
Successful.
Successful.
The operation was successful.
A highly successful meeting.
Were you successful in persuading him to change his mind?
The show's had a pretty successful run.
A highly successful product.
Arthur was a highly successful businessman.
He later became successful in politics.
I think she'll be successful as a photographer.
He successfully completed a master's degree.